She'd met the man of her dreams, the knight in shining armor.
When I looked into his eyes, John wasn't there anymore, but the hate was.
And I'm thinking, okay, he knows I'm still alive, he's probably gonna kill me.
There was blood on the walls, there was blood on the phone, there was blood everywhere.
And he looks up at me and he said, "You're gonna die tonight."
Flight attendant Kate Jewell arrives home after another trip across America. Her job takes her around the world, and she's enjoying life to the fullest.
Some of the things you've heard are probably true about being a flight attendant. It was fun.
Oh, we went to all the different cities. We had a great time. Kate's lifestyle was fantastic.
San Diego, it was such a great place to live. Hanging out with friends, being at the beach. It was fun.
Kate back then was beautiful inside and out, as she still is today. Very, very intelligent, a very strong person, probably the strongest person I've ever known.
Kate's approaching 40. Never married, she's beginning to feel that life is passing her by.
I was in several long-term relationships, and I really wanted one that lasted. Someone who was mature enough to make a commitment, being 38, looking at 40 coming up and thinking, okay, well, I want to stay healthy.
I would like to book an appointment with Dr. Branden.
Kate makes an appointment with a nutritionist, Dr. John Branden. He's highly recommended by her friends and colleagues.
Thanks.
I'd heard of Dr. Branden, and I'd heard that he could help balance your health. You'd lose a few pounds. You just had more energy and felt better.
It's a decision that will change her life forever.
On October 17th, I walked into his office, and this charming-looking man, nicely dressed, gorgeous complexion. He had such an easy, caring, listening ability, and everything he said made sense. In order to start the program, you did a blood draw.
Kate is terrified by the sight of blood.
So the blood draw was quite a nerve-wracking scenario for me.
Breathe.
So I'm sitting at the desk, and he's looking in my eyes, and he was just kind of like, okay, we're going to do this. I want you to visualize. I want you to connect with me. And I did.
Wasn't so bad, was it?
No.
That's when it started. I started looking forward to the visits. We talked a lot, and he listened. And he was empathetic.
Kate was definitely drawn to him by his intelligence. And they were into the same things. They were into nutrition. They were into making the body better.
The visits got a little bit more personal. We seemed to have a lot in common.
The commonality was unbelievable. And then she was very attracted to him physically also.
What a wonderful neck you have.
And I knew he had a crush on me, and I knew I had a crush on him, and I knew he was married, end of story.
She knew he was married, and she did not want to get involved with a married man.
It was completely harmless. I could have a crush on him, so what? It was fun. You get those little flutters. But to my mind, that's all the farther it would ever go.
She fell in love with him. Kate fell in love with John.
When the program comes to an end, Kate figures the harmless flirtation has also run its course.
I was done with my 8-week program. And we're sitting at the desk, and I said, okay, I'm really happy with the results, so what do we do now? And then all of a sudden, this really talkative man just took a deep breath, and he just got really quiet. And I'm like, what the heck's wrong with him? He goes, I need to tell you something. And then he couldn't talk. And I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And he said,
Kate.
I think I'm falling in love with you. And I was kind of exhilarated. It was wonderful to hear. And I was totally scared, and tons of red warning lights were going off in my brain. And I think when I finally found my voice, I think the first thing I said was,
But John, you're married.
and that's when he said, but we're almost divorced. And then we started seeing each other.
She was over the moon. She'd met the man of her dreams. He was just the knight in shining armor. She wanted a relationship. She wanted a marriage. She wanted to settle down. I think she wanted a family.
I wanted to be in a committed relationship. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have that love for the rest of my life.
A year after meeting, John moves in with Kate.
It was a perfect match. She and John were a perfect match.
He was very attentive, like picking me up from the airport.
He was wonderful to her. We'd go on our trips, and to be met at the airport by the love of her life, with flowers and a ride home, it was just awesome.
This is really nice. I'm being wined, I'm being dined. It was great. He could be funny, he could be playful. One time for New Year's Eve, we stayed in and he went out and got balloons and decorated the whole place with streamers and silly party hats. So he could be really fun. He was really into pleasing me and making this work. It was all loving, it was all hearts and flowers.
As their relationship deepens, Kate discovers John has some unusual habits.
If I'm cooking something and I use a bowl, it sits there. If I need a spoon, it sits there until I'm all done and then I clean it up. He would be there cleaning it up as I used them, and I'd turn around to go get something and he'd already cleaned it up. I know that he's very sensitive in particular, but his behavior, it was weird.
That's better.
At night, before we went to bed, he would go over and check the lock 7 times. Drove me nuts. He'd turn the knob, try to open the door, turn the knob, try to open the door 7 times every night. Drove me nuts.
Kate's job takes her away for days at a time. John phones to keep in touch. But his controlling behavior sets off alarm bells.
Hello?
I got into the room and the phone would be ringing. John would call me incessantly.
I just got into the hotel, actually. Yeah, we just arrived.
We had to share rooms on layovers, so a lot of times we'd be sharing a room and I would hear it on the phone.
What are you doing tonight?
Oh, you know what? I'm kind of beat, actually. I think I'll probably just stay in.
So you're not going out tonight?
No.
Because you need your sleep.
I know. Don't worry. I'll get lots of sleep. I'll be thinking of you.
It was constant. She could never go out with us because he was calling her incessantly. He just called her every 10, 15 minutes.
All right, baby.
It was just a real downer. Call. So I pretty much stopped going out with the crew, which is a bummer. This one night, apparently the switchboard got it screwed up and they called some other room and a man answered. And oh my God.
Hello?
So another man picked up, right?
John? Why are you calling me so late?
Tell me his name. Who is the man?
What man? I'm sleeping.
Don't lie to me, whore. Who was it?
And I told him the only explanation was that they'd called the wrong room.
Don't you lie to me.
And he didn't believe me.
Who was it?
In his mind, something nefarious was going on.
No, you're lying! Where are you? Tell me where you are!
It was really baffling. He just went nuts.
Flight attendant Kate Jewell decides to fly home after a furious fight with her lover, John Branden.
Somehow, he would not let it go.
She's upset and confused, but finds John apologetic and keen to make amends.
Sorry, it's not right, I know. It's just I hope you can forgive me.
So he said, I wouldn't have acted that way if I didn't love you so much.
But Kate quickly realizes there's a reason for John acting the way he does.
He would say he drank too much, and I would find a bottle hidden here and there. John had a huge issue with alcohol. He was an alcoholic.
He promises to give up the booze and turn over a new leaf. But Kate's job is bothering him.
Oh, his jealousy was unbelievable, especially when we would go on trips. And she was always having an affair with the pilot.
With some sort of jealous response to nothing. We know that San Francisco has a lot of gay people. This particular flight attendant was certainly one of them. As I walked off the airplane, John was in the terminal with flowers and saw me with a guy.
John?
Questioned me about it later. Well, so-and-so is gay. Well, he's probably bi. And I know you had an affair with him, I could just tell. I'd go out to lunch with a friend. He'd be fine. See you when you get back. I'd come back. Where have you been? What did you do? You couldn't have possibly done that for that long. You weren't having lunch for 2 hours. What did you really do? Who were you really with? Who did you meet?
Hello?
I think I tried everything under the sun to try and make him secure in my love for him. But there were no words, there were no gestures.
I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be able to make it. No.
The once fun-loving Kate is forced to distance herself from friends and colleagues.
And then our times that we used to be together and we used to talk and just be girlfriends just became less and less and less and less.
Okay, bye.
I could see Kate turning into a person which she wasn't. He just sucked the soul right out of her.
A lot of times he would explain his erratic behavior by giving it some scientific basis. Low blood sugar was a big one. If he didn't get enough protein. If I'd made spaghetti for dinner, that was the wrong thing to do. Whatever the quote-unquote scientific reason for what happened to his behavior, it always boiled down into it's your fault in some way, and eventually I actually bought that.
It's the holiday season, and Kate's employer, American Airlines, is hosting a lavish Christmas party. Nothing can prepare her for what is about to happen.
And I'm thinking we're drinking non-alcoholic wine. I figured out later he'd bought a bottle of wine and put it in the non-alcoholic bottle. One of the captains, who was an old friend, comes over and he puts his hands on my shoulder and he bent over and he gave me a kiss on the cheek. And I felt John's energy change.
That was the first time I thought, wow, something's really not right here. Something's very wrong.
Later, As Kate prepares to go to work, John is steaming.
John was furious.
I saw him touching your breast.
The captain. Oh my God. He had his hands on my breast. I said, excuse me? They were on my shoulders.
You stewardesses are a horse!
And I was incredulous, like, how can you do this?
We had this conversation last night.
You're a whore!
He punched a hole in the wall right by my head.
Tell me! You have no idea what I'm capable of!
And that scared the heck out of me. It was insane. The next day, he started screaming at me again.
Why do you let him touch you?
For flirting with this guy and allowing him to touch me.
I saw him touching you!
John!
It was sexual. He was coming on to you sexually.
Don't act like a whore!
All those four-letter words, all those titles that women hate. I was all of them.
I saw him touching you!
There's something wrong with you!
I was in the kitchen putting stuff away, and he was in the living room still ranting.
You're sick!
I'm sick!
Yeah, you're
I'm sick! You think I'm sick?
Next thing I remember is I looked in his eyes and he was going to shoot me.
John? John?
I'm sick! Come here!
He went into the bedroom and locked the door. Then I took the dresser and shoved it in front of the door. And he fired 2 bullets through the door. I hid in the closet and prayed I'd live through the night.
Kate Jewell is barricaded in her bedroom. Her boyfriend, John Branden, is threatening to kill her.
Spent the night in there. Because normally by the time morning came, he would have sobered up enough to be more rational. And when I came out in the morning, he was still angry. And he said he was gonna shoot Mittens, my kitty. So I grabbed Mittens and I ran down to the garage and I got in the car.
Kate flees and drives north, only stopping when she needs gas.
I left him and moved. I took my cat and went to San Francisco.
She rents an apartment and attempts to rebuild her life without John. But he is determined to never let Kate go.
He called to make sure I was okay. He called to tell me how much he missed me. And tell me how much he loved me. He said he gave up the booze and he convinced me that he'd given his guns away. They were out of the house. It would never happen again.
Kate is the type of person that always wants to believe the best of someone. She wants to believe in the goodness of someone. She wanted to believe so much in John's goodness.
And I agreed to go back.
I think she forgave him because I think she loved him. I think she was very much in love with him.
I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe in him. I wanted to believe in us. I wanted the fairy tale. I wanted to live happily ever after with a man I loved.
It's for you.
He would buy me dolphin jewelry because he knew I loved dolphins. And I had quite the collection of dolphin jewelry.
But Kate has also learned to be wary of John's darker side.
This hateful, hating, accusatory human being that was almost demonic.
You don't like it?
That person was pretty much always connected to the alcohol consumption.
You're such a special one.
In talking about it and trying to understand it, we created that part of him as Dirk, who basically was the alcoholic animal inside John. And when Dirk got out, he was hateful. He was horrid. He was horribly abusive, and he hated me a lot.
Kate and John resolve to put the past behind them. They want to make a fresh start. They pack up their possessions and head north. Driving through Oregon, they reach a small town on the Pacific.
When we went through Gold Beach the first time, we found a really wonderful house for sale by owner and went down and got a house. It was like a little cabin in the woods, and we could see the ocean, and we had 4 acres. Walked through this beautiful old-growth forest onto a beach with no footprints in the sand. And we took long walks and would sit on the cliff over the ocean, and it was wonderful, and I loved it.
The house is old, quiet, isolated. The only other 2 houses in the neighborhood are both several hundred yards away. John promises to make up for all the harm he's done. He wants things to go back to the way they were when they first met.
John often used the words "connect with me," I think, to bring both of us back to how we first connected when he drew my blood. He said, "We have this connection that nobody understands." It was wonderful to hear and kind of healing, and it was very romantic. I thought that love would conquer all. It was Christmas, warm, fuzzy, loving feelings, and he proposed. I mean, he's serious now. He's asked me to marry him. Maybe I can make this work. And yes, I'd always wanted to get married, and the John I fell in love with would be wonderful, and I loved him.
Kate has learned from bitter experience that she needs to listen to her head, not only her heart.
I was very aware that I was living with a couple of personalities, and while I wanted to believe in the good part of him, eventually I looked at him and just said, "I'll marry you when you become the John I fell in love with. But not the way you've been."
Kate's prepared to give John a chance, and John seems to accept his rejection. Things go smoothly. Until one Memorial Day weekend.
We'd been working in the yard all day. But John was in his own world.
I'm gonna go clear the path.
There was a path that we had to clear to get down to the beach.
Kate leaves John alone for several hours.
And about 8:30 that night, I came up, finished from that, all sweaty, and I saw he'd made a little bonfire in the backyard. And I noticed there was a very large bottle of wine open on the patio table, and over half of it was gone.
I'm gonna go have a shower, okay?
So John said,
Come here.
and he looks up at me and he said, "You're gonna die tonight." And I looked at his eyes and I knew he meant it.
On an isolated property in Gold Beach, Oregon, a drunk John Branden has threatened to kill his girlfriend, Kate Jewell.
So I shook my hands free of him and I started to run. He got out and he tackled me. He started punching me in the face. I thought I'd better stop struggling while I still had a brain.
You're coming with me.
He wanted to go in the house, so I let him. And he grabbed a kitchen knife. He went upstairs.
Just shut your mouth, you little whore.
When I looked into his eyes, John wasn't there anymore. But the hate was. And I just kept trying to find some way to talk to him and look at him and find the John that I'd known before and see if he was anywhere in there. But it's like he was gone. And he held me down.
For over 2 hours, Kate is brutally raped by John.
John tied me up, but luckily he used elastic. While he went to the bathroom, with the door open, I realized I could get my hands free. And I didn't think I could slip by without him seeing me, but I had to go by the opening to the bathroom to get out the door. And I heard, it must have been God say, go. And I went. I tiptoed across the room. Somehow I got the sliding door open and across the creaky deck. Somehow I got to the neighbor's house. By this time it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And started screaming for them. And the neighbors woke up and we called 911 and hid in the hall.
Kate hides in her neighbor's house, terrified John will come and get her.
I remember thinking he could be lurking anywhere. But I had to concentrate on the fact that I was alive and the police would be with us and that I would be safe.
The perpetrator took her car and fled right as officers were at her residence. They didn't know which way he went, and they lost him. I put out an arrest warrant for Mr. Branden, major felony crimes such as rape, assault, and attempted murder.
Police discover Kate's car abandoned in a nearby parking lot. But John is nowhere to be found. A potential killer is on the loose.
It was like he fell off the face of the earth. He just disappeared.
Kate had a lucky escape, but she knows John may come back to finish the job. Three months later, the police are no closer to finding him.
There was this constant, he could be lurking anywhere. I was always just scanning, constantly scanning, looking behind me, looking around corners, checking everybody.
Detective Dave Gardner calls on Kate at regular intervals to check if she's okay.
At times, she would break down. She would hear a car crackling on the gravel near her house, and she would go into kind of a state of being panicked, even though that she was right there with me.
Life for Kate was just pure hell. She never knew if he was going to be around the corner, if he was going to turn up and finish the job. She was broken physically. She was broken mentally. She was half the person she was.
I got a letter at the end of August, a 9-page letter, telling me how terrible his life was and how sorry he was.
Dear Kate, I can feel you so strongly this morning, as I can so many mornings. I can feel you sending me messages. So you can go inside your heart and know I'm alive and okay. It's hard for me not to just find a phone and call you. So we will have to trust our way of communicating via the universe.
I was scared. The police in Gold Beach said, "You can't stay here." So I started making plans to move.
Kate finds refuge close to the Canadian border in upstate Washington.
And I moved to Orcas Island because when I checked out Orcas Island, I talked to the sheriffs here and they said nobody had ever been murdered on the island. And changed my name. I did pretty much everything I could to hide out.
8 years pass by. It's now early 2007. Although the police and FBI comb the country, John goes off the radar. But Kate knows better than anyone he has to be found. Before he strikes again.
Because my last night with him was so violent and I escaped so narrowly, I knew that the next woman wouldn't, and I knew that that rage inside of him would probably only escalate.
She wanted him caught because she didn't want him to kill someone. She didn't. The next woman that came along, she knew he would kill her.
I really wanted to do everything I possibly could to make sure that no woman went where I'd been. And so I began working with the police because I wanted him found.
Kate came back to Curry County on a couple of visits. She showed me a picture of him at one point standing in their kitchen, and in that picture he's wearing a cowboy hat. He's also wearing a short revolver. He was really pretty much out there, but I did consider him very dangerous because of the nature of what he planned to do with Kate. During that assault, he told her that he was going to cut her up, kill her, cut her up, and dispose of her body over the cliff behind their house.
He promised that after he killed me, he was going to go down and kill my girlfriend and her daughter in El Granada, and then over to Florida to my sisters, and had this quite long list of people he was going to kill.
What Kate and the police don't know is that John is only 100 miles away. He's living a new life with a new name. John Branden is now John Williams. And he has a new victim in his sights, Turi Lee Bentley.
Turi was in the process of divorcing her husband, and she met John. They struck up initially a friendship, which became romantic.
She introduced me to John. You know, he was quiet, reserved. He seemed very brilliant.
Turi is passionate about healthcare and nutrition. She wants to use the money from her divorce to start up a business. And John seems the ideal partner for her new venture.
It kind of would make sense that John and Turi would be a good fit.
They seemed like a very perfect couple. They seemed to be in love.
It isn't long before John reveals his true colors.
I felt that there were multiple sides to John. One part would be very caring, very charming, very considerate. Another part would be antisocial person who basically hated everybody. Both Turi and I wanted to basically ignore all the bad stuff.
Kate is still haunted by the memory of John. She has a terrifying premonition.
I had the most horrible nightmare. I just felt this horrible sense of anger. And it felt like John was right outside my bedroom door. John had a knife. And all of a sudden I realized I couldn't run because I was paralyzed.
Kate has always kept in touch with Detective David Gardner. And he hasn't forgotten John Branden either.
I never gave up on locating him. I was tasked with picking out the 10 most wanted people in Curry County. And so I put out John Branden's photograph and his charges in the local newspaper.
Several days later, Turi discovers her boyfriend is a wanted man.
It was 11:30 and I was getting ready to go to bed, and I get a phone call, and it was Turi. She asked me if I could walk down to, their house. She said, "Can you just come down here as quick as you can?" And she goes, "Oh, I've got to hang up here. I think he's listening."
Randall races over to Turi's house and lets himself in. Turi's confronted John over the newspaper article.
When I got there, there was a bottle of wine there, and I thought that was really odd because Turi does not allow any kind of booze in the house. John was sitting in the kitchen, and I figured out that Turi locked herself in the bedroom. John told me that he and Turi got into an argument. Turi said something that he didn't like and found that very disrespectful. I was sitting down, John was sitting across from me, so Turi came and stood near to me. And so this is the story that he told Turi. He said that his last girlfriend, Kate Jewell, had slandered him and made lies to the police, and that they were gonna come arrest him. He said, "Well, airline stewardesses, right? They're all sluts." Now he's starting to get more agitated. He left the kitchen and came back with his pistol. He immediately pointed the gun at Turi. His pupils were just black, black, black.
In upstate Washington, John Branden snaps and pulls a gun on his girlfriend, Turi Lee Bentley.
And he orders her to her knees. And I don't even know what to make of this. And, all happening very quickly. And he shoots her twice. So I lean over to try to check her vitals, and there wasn't any. And I don't know what to do. And then he shot me in the face. I can tell you that being shot in the face does not hurt. It feels like someone taking the heel of their hand and popping you really firmly on your forehead, but it doesn't hurt. Now I can't see. I can't open my jaws, and my mouth is full of, it felt like bone chips and a lot of blood. I'm on the ground, And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell now?
Turi is dead. Randall's certain John's about to finish him off too.
He leaves the kitchen as I'm on the ground, waiting, contemplating for something to happen. And then I hear him come back. And I'm thinking, okay, he knows I'm still alive. He's probably gonna kill me. And then I hear a single shot. And you know, I hear him hit the ground. And I hear 11 very labored breaths. And then it stopped. My brain still worked and didn't know what to do. I knew they had a house phone on top of their kitchen counter, so I found my way there and pressed the wrong buttons, could not get an outside line. I don't know if I slept, I probably did. And I heard birds chirping, I go, oh, okay, I think it's morning.
Blinded by the gunshot and weakened from the loss of blood, Randall seeks help.
I find my way outside and I heard a door open and I called for help. And this guy goes, oh, okay, I'm gonna go call an ambulance. The part that made me chuckle a little bit was I heard him go back into his house, close the door, and I heard him lock it. And I for some reason, I thought that was really funny.
He was very stressed out, according to the neighbor. He was screaming, help me, help me. And there was quite a bit of blood on Randall and around the comforter that he had over him. And it was apparent that he had sustained a really bad gunshot wound to the head. And the bullet had exited through his temple and at that point taken out his eye.
His eye was obviously destroyed, but it was still hanging out of the socket. I mean, it was a pretty gruesome scene. I mean, you could tell that he had been shot in the eye. There was basically a huge hole there. He had lost an incredible amount of blood. We didn't know what the situation was inside there. We found John, obviously deceased. He had a gunshot wound to his head. There was a large pool of blood. And as you looked in the kitchen, you could see Turi. There was blood everywhere.
But when police try to find information on the man they believe to be John Williams, there's no trace of him.
We used the full name and date of birth that we had, but nothing was coming back. You know, we couldn't find a driver's license status in the United States. We couldn't find, any kind of record on this guy or any kind of history. And so it just didn't add up, because almost everybody you run through records is going to have some kind of record. Even if they haven't had a driver's license, there's going to be something to show that they exist. And we couldn't find anything on this guy.
The cops are baffled until they search John in Turi's home.
We were going through the attic and a backpack was found that had a small lock on it. And it was full of a lot of fake IDs with John's picture on them and different names. But then we found his actual ID, which told us who he really was.
The identification leads police to Kate.
Detective Gardner called me and he said, John's dead, and I said, I know. I don't know why, I just knew he was dead. I felt like he'd passed. His anger had passed through me or by me while on his way to hell.
When I found out John had shot himself, I didn't feel bad at all. I felt bad for that wonderful man that he blinded, and he shot a wonderful woman that he had been dating for a couple of years. I felt horrible for them, but not for John.
Kate, Jewell, she was distraught over the fact that there were other victims out there.
I was heartbroken. And for the longest time, I kept trying to go through my mind what I could have done more to find him before he killed somebody else. And to find out that Turi had kids. And she was gone, only for loving the wrong man. I don't think I've ever felt worse about anything.
Turi was buried in Gig Harbor in April 2007. Randall will be blind for the rest of his life. Kate has never married and still lives on Orcas Island, Washington. To help heal the wounds of the past, she has written a letter to the woman she never met and couldn't save.
It wasn't your job or mine to fix him, although I know we both tried our best to do so. We both sought to love and be loved, and thought at the outset we'd found the perfect mate. We both were dead, or almost dead, wrong. I am sorry from the bottom of my soul that I could not help that you were killed, and I can only hope and believe that you're at peace in a better place. I ask now for your forgiveness. Sincerely.